Let's go ahead and take a look at the basic functions of Medius.Re as found in the Maryland Small Grains license. First thing you're going to see when accessing the site is the ability to select a product. We're going to go ahead and for this demo look at corn. So I've clicked on corn, and what this does is it takes me to the dashboard. So let's go ahead and walk through the dashboard and see what I have available for me. One of the features that's most used is this find variety feature that's going to be right here in this white box in the middle that I can search for, or you can find variety up here in the top left corner in the sidebar. But I'm going to go ahead and type in, let's say there's a Syngenta variety 1748. And I'm just going to type in what I know of that, and it's going to find a match for me. So I have the NK1748-3110. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And what you're going to see here first is you're going to see the variety name. If there are any other names that variety is known by, they would show up here. And then the partner or the seed company, whoever that variety belongs to, you would see that information here as well. Then down below, I'm going to see what trial group that showed up in, so corn, and then what we call trial blocks, but these are essentially your trial locations. Where has this variety been trialed? And I can see all of these locations here, as well as the years that are available. If there were a featured image available for me, that would show up here. And then this is a link to the tech sheet if I wanted to go find out more information directly from the partner or the breeder. I can do that as well. And if there was any additional information available to me, it would show up down below. The second tab you're going to see here is trials. This is a high-level view of all of the trial data associated with this variety. So again, I can see where it was trialed, the years that it was trialed in, and how many variety records I have available to me. And so if I'm looking here at yield, I can notice that it is bushels per acre. This is the average across all of these variety records. And if I were to click on that average, I can see the breakdown of all of the trials that had yield values for this variety, and those are the numbers that make up the average that I am looking at. This gives you a good high-level indication of a variety's performance and tells you whether or not you want to look at more information related to this variety. If you're interested in just dumping any data associated with the variety, you can click up here on Export Corn Data. If you want to share this variety with someone, you can go ahead and click on this copy variety link, and it will generate a unique link that you can send to anybody and access this exact information. Or if you want to be able to export this as a PNG file to be able to include it in a presentation, you can do that as well. Images and documents, if there are any images associated with the variety, they would show up in here. At this point for corn, there aren't any images, but expect those to come in future trials, and you would see all of those images here. And then any document that is linked to this variety would show up here as well, so you can look to see those coming in the future as well. So that's a high-level view of looking at a variety. That is if you're interested in finding a single variety that someone has recommended you look up, you can find information about it there. The second piece that we're going to look at is we're going to look at now query by variety. And this is a scenario where you know some parameters that you want to find varieties that fall within those parameters or have achieved those benchmarks at a certain period of time. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start with yield. I'm going to select yield, bushels per acre. And I want to find a variety that at some point it had a yield greater than 100 bushels per acre. Then I'm going to go ahead and add an additional parameter in here of test weight. And we want to find where that test weight was greater than 60 pounds per bushel. And I'm interested where my environment was dry, so this is non-irrigated ground, which is probably most of Maryland, but we're just going to specify that anyways. And then if you're looking for a specific soil type, say you are in a certain region and you want to find a soil type that fits your needs, you can select that as well. So let's go ahead and select the Glenville Silt Loam. Now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and click on search, and we're going to get a result of varieties that have matched that criteria over this period of time. And I can actually say, well, I'm interested in 2019 to 2021. Go ahead and hit apply, click search again, and I get the same result of those 4 varieties. So I can learn a little bit about those varieties that returned in the query by seeing there's a year here that shows me what data is available for that variety. So 3 of these varieties, there's only trial data available in 2020, but for this particular variety, I have trial data available from 2019 all the way through to 2021. If you're interested in looking at this specific variety, you could click on View Variety like we did looking at a single variety, or we can actually look at all of the data as it compares across all of these different varieties. Now, by default, I have these toggle filters turned off, and what that means is when we go to the compare page here, I don't want to apply these filters and therefore restrict down the data that I'm looking at. I want to be able to look at all of the data available for me for these 4 varieties. So with the 4 varieties selected, I'm going to go ahead and click on compare, and that's going to take us over here to a new page that will give us all 4 of those varieties in a similar view to what we saw with just the single variety, but now we're looking at all 4 of them compared side by side. So what I can see now here is my yield values for all of these varieties, your test weight, lodging numbers, anything else that's relevant to trial data from the years 2019 to 2021. Similarly to what you could do if you were looking at a single variety, is you could go ahead and click just on that value that is an average and see all of the values that make it up. Or if you wanted to do that for all of the varieties that you have selected, you can go ahead and click on the data field name over here. And what that's going to do for you is now break that out, and it's going to show you all of the breakdown of those varieties. And so one of the things that pops out at you here quickly is you will notice that this particular variety existed in mid-season hybrids and isn't a full season hybrid like the other ones are. So what I can do is I can come over here and I can actually take this variety out, and now I'm only looking at the 3 varieties that remain. The other thing that you will see here is that some of this particular variety has data in years that the other one doesn't. So you're not necessarily looking at a fair comparison when you have 20 variety records for the one and 59 for the other. So that's where this feature up here at the top, Correlated Data, comes into play. So if you go ahead and turn on Correlated Data, what you're going to see now is where you have data returned only for when each one of these varieties existed in the exact same trial. And the reason you might see a difference in variety records could be based on whether or not there were a different number of replicates in a trial. But this correlated data is isolating your data down to where all of these varieties existed in the exact same trial. So when you're doing your comparison, you know that these values have come from scenarios where all of the varieties were under the same environmental practices and stresses. So this gives you a quick way to be able to look at that apple-to-apple comparison. Like looking at a single variety, if you wanted to share this with someone, you can come up here and click on the copy link icon. That will generate a unique link for you to be able to send to anyone that will take them to exactly what you were looking at here. In addition, you can go ahead and download the data. What this will do is download an Excel sheet that will not only contain the comparison view as you see it here, but also give you additional sheets within the worksheet of Excel that contain all of the detailed information of the data that makes up these averages that you are seeing. And again, you can also generate a PNG and capture this information as an image if you want to include it in a report. The other piece that you're going to see over here is compare settings. Again, will give you access to correlated data. But you can also change how you're viewing the data. If you wanted to increase your font size at all, if you wanted to increase the font weight, change the darkness or anything to be able to better represent this if you're exporting it into a PNG and trying to represent this data better to someone, you have flexibility here to be able to mix and match and change those settings to best fit your needs. So I've gone ahead now and I've closed compare, and we've gone back to the dashboard, and we're looking again at the dashboard for corn. And let's go ahead and continue to see what our possibilities are. So we looked at query variety. That took us then to compare varieties. You could jump directly to compare varieties and type in the varieties that you want. The next piece that we're going to look at is trials. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to look at corn trials. And what these corn trials are is the ability, these are all the trials that existed in the years that you have selected. So I go ahead and select this early season hybrid, and what that's going to do is pull up all of the detailed information about the trial for me to be able to look at. So I can see my yields. You can go ahead and click on any one of these headers to be able to sort all of your data. You can select as many trials as you want, and it will mix and match those for you for better evaluation. You have the flexibility to come up here and toggle some filters if you wanted to specify only where yield was greater than a certain amount. You can go ahead and make that adjustment. And as you see, we've gone from original 140 records down to 78 total records by applying this filter. And you can stack as many filters as you want. You go ahead and turn those off, and let's return to our trial list. So one of the things you probably noticed is you've got this familiar link icon here as well. So if you were to click on that link icon, it will generate a unique URL that copies to your clipboard and allows you to paste that in an email or a text message and send that to someone, and it will take them directly to this trial data view so they don't have to go search for it. The other icon that you're going to see here is weather data. What weather data does is it takes the planting date all the way to the harvest date and pulls the weather data for you from the weather station that is nearest to the location that the trial occurred in. So what we're looking at here initially is a max air temperature, but I can go ahead if I wanted to and add precipitation to that. So if I were to select precipitation here, now what I see is precipitation overlaid with my max temperature. So I can see how that potentially impacted the trial data that I'm looking at. And if you're interested in pulling in multiple years worth of values, we could go ahead and say, let's look at 3 years worth of max air temperature. I'm going to go ahead and reload that, and you'll notice that there's now the gray over top that shows you how the current year's max air temperature relates to a 3-year average, just to give you some indication as to this year's performance over previous years. If you're interested in finding out more, you have growing degree days available to you, cumulative here from planting to harvest. The default threshold is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, but you can adjust that to whatever you need that to be, and it'll automatically recalculate. You can also look at the raw weather data if you wanted to look at more detail of that weather information related to the trial data that you are looking for. That's kind of a quick overview of our trial, looking at our raw trial data. Let's go ahead and go back to the dashboard and finish up our overview of Medius.Re. We're going to look at analytics in a different video, because there's a lot more detail involved in that. But as we just continue down our dashboard here, you'll see that there's some recently searched for corn varieties. This is just a neat little list of things that were recently searched for, the ability for you to just click on this to view that variety. You could jump right to latest published trials. So these would be the most recent trials available to you. And then if there's any documents related to corn that are available, you have access to those as well, and simply just select those. It'll take you to the document library and it'll pull those documents up. So when you're used to getting those reports that come from extension or the university, then you can also gain access to those reports right here along with all of the raw data. So that's a quick overview of some of the initial things you can do with Medius.Re.